Thank you very much, Sarah, and I'm very pleased to be here today. I think, as Sarah said, it's particularly timely. I feel as though working in the renewable energy area at the moment, it's come of age in a way. People are really getting it and understanding why it's such an important thing to be driving and why we really need to be driving renewable energy at the moment. So I hope we can all work together today to look for ways of doing that ourselves as well as helping others. Just to clarify what I do, the Office for Renewable Energy Deployment more or less does what it says on the tin. Our mission is to work towards achieving the 2020 target of 15% of energy coming from renewable sources by 2020, and also looking beyond that to what we might need further. The Committee on Climate Change recently said they thought 15% was pretty challenging and we probably shouldn't increase our 2020 target for the time being, but they're going to produce some advice on 2030 quite soon, so we are looking to that with some considerable interest. The land-based renewables part of ORED deals exactly with that, land-based renewables. So primarily we work on wind and biomass and also solar. There's another bit of the team that does offshore wind and marine energy and also hydropower. So why should we be interested in renewable energy? Why should the public sector be interested in renewable energy in particular? I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but let's run through it just in case. Secure energy supplies. At the moment, we're pretty heavily dependent on imported coal and gas supplies. That's not really sustainable regardless of the environmental consequences. And renewable energy is the obvious way of trying to bring energy generation home. Leadership. As public sector organisations, and that means central government, it means arm's length bodies, hospitals, prisons, schools, and of course local authorities, we can be first. We can show how it's done and help others to do it too. I've mentioned the 15% target for 2020. Of course, we also have the Climate Change Act, which requires us to reduce our overall emissions by 80% by 2050, and the carbon budgets that have already been set for the next 15 years, which are legally binding. So we've got some pretty challenging work to do on those. Maximising value of assets. Sorry for the technical jargon, but really, if public sector organisations have land and you have buildings, you might as well make some money from them, is what I'm getting at. So solar panels on the roof, using your land to generate wind energy, with the financial incentives that are in place now and pretty well set in place, there's a huge opportunity here. And of course, jobs. This is quite a big thing for the government, supporting green jobs. There was a big announcement in the spending review about new money for offshore wind, and I think you might have noticed yesterday there was an announcement that 3 big manufacturers are coming to the UK to start producing offshore wind turbines and bits and pieces in the UK, which is an enormously exciting announcement. I think the start of what could be an enormous kind of job creation and new industry for this country. Sorry, this is a bit blurry. It's an extract from last year's Renewable Energy Strategy, 2009, produced under the previous government, but still pretty much true as far as we're concerned. It's a sort of indicative scenario for 2020 of where we think all our renewable energy might come from. So you can see over on the left, quite a lot of wind generation we expect, both offshore and onshore. And then the rest of it is broken down into heat and transport, so sustainable transport, which includes electrification to the extent that electricity comes from renewable sources, and also biofuels if they can be produced sustainably, and a lot of heat work that we need to drive very quickly indeed, so heat pumps and biomass heating. And then, of course, some hydro and solar generation as well. And I've been asked to be very clear that this is not a target. We don't necessarily want to break things down in this way. And if the market brings forward certain technologies more quickly than others, fine. And, you know, we're grateful for whatever happens. But this is kind of what our modelling has shown is likely to be the outcome. So what are we doing at the moment to try and support renewable energy generation? You'll all know about the feed-in tariff. We were really delighted with the spending review announcement that it'll carry on exactly as it is at the moment. We'll be looking at it again in 2013 to make sure that it's still balanced in the right way to encourage the technologies that we want. But that's not any different from what we were doing anyway. So we hope that's a good announcement. Renewables obligation may be less of interest, maybe more for the bigger generators, but again, we were pretty pleased that nothing changed on that. Sounds, there wasn't an announcement because there was nothing to say, but that's good news. Power for local authorities to sell electricity. You'll all be aware of this one as well. Chris Huhne announced it in August that you can all now sell electricity, and encouraging you to do that and go out and look for opportunities to start generating. Community Energy Online. This is going to be a new website that we are launching next month, which will be a really good resource for all community organisations that want to generate their own energy, heat or electricity from whatever technology. And it'll have a whole set of interactive, or sort of interactive stages about how do you go through the planning process, how do you identify the technology that might be most suited to your needs, how do you look for finance, which we know is an enormous issue for communities, and so all those kinds of things. And also links to who's done it before, who can I ring and ask about this. And I think that there'll be a speech probably by Greg Barker at some point next month, at which point the thing will go online. Important to note on that, if you go onto that website and you think, actually, it could be better if they did this slightly differently, give us a ring and let us know, because we want to make sure it really works. We have the opportunity to provide a centralised resource. Let's make sure it's really good. Salix Finance, just thought I should mention the revolving loan fund that's primarily for energy efficiency and primarily for local authorities, but also for other public sector organisations to take out a loan, which is then repaid through energy savings. And as I understand, it can be used for low carbon energy generation as well, as long as the payback period has been demonstrated. So worth looking into. So that's what's already happening. What might be happening? Well, the renewable heat incentive definitely will, and we will be launching it next June. Detailed proposals will be coming out, or detailed explanation of what's going to happen will be coming out, I think, towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. Obviously, we've consulted on it already. We consulted, which closed in February. In that consultation, we proposed that it should be available for any kinds of heat technology pretty much, so biomass generation, ground source and air source heat pumps, biofuels, anything else you can think of. I don't know whether that will still be the case when it happens. We've got slightly less money for it than we expected, but it's still going ahead and we want to make it work as well as possible, so watch this space. Green Investment Bank and Big Society Bank, still waiting for a bit more clarity on what these are going to do, but I hope that they will provide opportunities for all of us to find ways of investing in renewable energy. I'm working closely with other bits of government who are working up those proposals, and there was an announcement in the spending review of £1 billion for the Green Investment Bank, plus anything that comes in subsequently from the sale of assets. So that's a good amount of money, and we look forward to seeing how it's going to be rolled out. Next technical bit, reform of the energy markets. So the current energy market system was very much set up to support the existing coal and gas-fired generation, and this government and the last government were very keen to, or are very keen to move to a system that supports low carbon generation. So that's renewables, and it's also nuclear, and includes heat as well to some extent. We will be seeing some papers come out. I think there was Sarah mentioned the 2050 pathways, which was a little bit of an indication of where we might be going with that, and it was linked to some very high-level stuff on energy market reform. But it could have some pretty wide-ranging implications in a good way for renewable energy, in a way that really puts the right price on carbon and supports generation. So I hope that that's good news at some point soon. Coalition agreement will be allowing communities that host renewable energy projects to keep the business rates associated with those projects. There's going to be a local growth white paper published at some point in the next month or so, or less, actually, I think. And we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the incentives for local authorities to support renewable energy in your area. I'll talk about the vitality of local authorities' planning function in really supporting other generators that come forward. And I hope that the business rates retention will be a little bit of an incentive to take lots of positive decisions on renewable energy projects where they are appropriate to the area.